Well, I don't have to, it's just remembering to put it back on. But I suppose...
Kill the audio.
Okay. So if I go... put that down... Let's go to camera 2. It's all very professional here down at the Roundel. It's Roundel Live, second edition.
Episode 2 already.
And,
Back live at the very quiet Roundel this morning.
Hopefully it's going to be the award-winning roundabout. This feat of road design. It must be in line for some, I don't know, they must have awards for this sort of thing, mustn't they?
Probably.
Well, I think they do, and it is a real feature here on Douglas Promenade. Yet to be finished. I could see the Harris fencing is in the background, and beyond are those wind turbines that aren't turning in these sublime conditions. What happens with that, Frank? You're a green fuel junkie.
Oh, they don't need much wind to turn really, but yeah, there will be conditions when they don't work. So it's just one of those things. It doesn't mean the tech is bad. It just means
there's no wind and they don't work, and we're back on the gas turbine down in Pulrose Power Station.
You know, I still think we should probably pursue other. I'm gonna put my audio monitor out. Other techs, such as tidal. I'm a really big fan of tidal power. There's so much potential, and I mean we have a lot of sea, so you can chuck those tidal generators in there. I think some of them are actually underwater, so you wouldn't even see them, unlike the wind turbines, which a lot of people take offense to. So
we're asking about technology that is in and around water. Are we going to be looking
yes.
at, say, the success of the water slides, or maybe further across the water to the dock at Merseyside?
I really like that there's a real branding opportunity here for those flumes at the NSC. They should team up with the TT. I mean, it's equally dangerous to do the TT and the flumes. So, can you see the tie up here?
I do. Extreme holidays on the Isle of Man,
yes.
Traverse the Roundel, survive the tram ride, make your way over the mountain.
Get the TT feeling on the NSC flumes.
Well, it's been a funny old week. We had some breaking news. I think it was on Friday tea time. It's usually convenient, isn't it? And it was something about holiday cottages and a former chief minister. As we know, that's not a recipe for success, but this came about through an FOI, Freedom of Information application. Do you check that site out, Frank?
I do check the FOI site once in a while to see what's new and what people are asking. You know, a lot of these FOI requests are, well, they can be a bit rubbish, but there is really important information in between there. And it's a really, really important tool to have for us to receive transparency from government, which is key. You know, government needs to be transparent. If you are a public official, if you receive any kind of money from the public purse, you must be transparent.
So we're talking about a multi-millionaire public official elected and receiving assistance and grants or what have you for property owned. So I think the public are going to be interested in that. How much money was dished out? I mean, not just that, it's right across the board, isn't it? We're talking about holiday cottages. I don't know, it seems to be a bit of a hobby for many business enterprises. I'm not quite sure how desperate they would have been to have that assistance.
Well, I think that there's two parts to this. One, of course, is, should a person who may already have enough funds and doesn't necessarily need it apply for it in the first place, but that's a matter for the rules themselves. It's the fact that they tried to withhold information that I find is a bit worrying, because it's why are you doing that? Why are you not being transparent? Has he done something wrong? Because if you don't want to tell me, then my automatic assumption by the public will be that there's something not right. Otherwise, why wouldn't you tell us? If it's okay under the rules may not be perfect. You may have to change them that certain people can't get it if they have enough money already, but why wouldn't you tell us who got it?
A bit of clarity and transparency, that's what we want. We want the rules to be kept to, but I'll tell you what, the rules weren't even written. I was checking out my Manx Independent this week, and it said about police operating beyond the powers, and this was in relation to a road traffic matter. I think it's like roadside drug testing and what have you, but the basics weren't kept to, were they?
Yeah, I read that article, and it seems to basically concern that when they did drug tests at the side of the road, there was a piece of legislation missing. So technically they couldn't have done what they did. But it's my understanding this piece of legislation is in place now. So if they drug test you now, it's legal. It was sort of I think it was probably an oversight. And, I mean, let's go one thing straight. Drink driving and drug driving is never, ever, ever acceptable. I'm all for cannabis legalization, legalize your stuff, tax it. But if you smoke or if you drink, don't get behind the wheel of a car. It's as simple as that. So I can see that the police wanted to do the right thing, but you always need to make sure that your rules are in place before you do it, because otherwise any prosecution you may bring, they're not going to stand.
But surely this is the basics, isn't it? The basics in creating and delivering statutes. And I suppose it's a timely moment to say that in the newspaper there is reports of a law review.
Yes.
Jane Poole-Wilson, number 2 in government, head of Home Affairs, and a lawyer herself, is seeking for a review of the services provided. But it's also a crucial time at the moment. It's almost a point in history where the Isle of Man has got a fantastic opportunity. We've got a new Chief Constable and a new Attorney General about to be appointed, and this is really significant. How about we just appoint 2 individuals who aren't linked to the Isle of Man in any way? We've got a big global market of professional lawyers and professional people who could do this job, and to bring someone to the island who hasn't got any embedded family or business ties or any relationships or any baggage, if you like. Just imagine that.
Let's face it, even if you are looking for a local candidate, and sometimes they like the local angle, they being the powers that be, you are always either related to someone or you know a lot of people, especially in senior positions, if you worked your way through the ranks, if you worked your lifelong here, because these are positions you don't just take coming out of university or law school or something. These are positions that you take many years in your career, so you will have built up connections on the island. You have your networks, your friends, and that ties you in, and that gives you probably an unconscious bias as well towards certain thing and certain thinking. So I completely agree, a clean broom on both accounts might be really beneficial, but it's going to be a tough ask, mainly because the rules here are different to the UK, and if you take someone from somewhere across the globe, they will probably need some time to adjust to the role or to learn the role. So it may be it may be the better process, but it may be a slower process.
I think it is absolutely essential, and I don't think we need that local knowledge and those local connections. We need that complete break from the establishment, and we need to have the Manx public having 100% trust. And those candidates, those people are going to be out there. They don't necessarily have to be in the UK. They could be anywhere around the world, but certainly I think that is a golden opportunity. So watch this space on that one. Also on the front of my fabulous Manx Independent, you know what? I called this a rag and got chastised for it. I think you can call it your daily rag, and they do a good job too. I quite like the paper. I think it's had a bit of a breath of fresh air. I don't know, maybe there's some new journalism going in, but we've had this one, the income squeeze.
That's a real big issue. I think these are, housing, and housing ties into this. With the gas price increase, with the inflation increase, it's going to hammer people's wallets, and everyone feels it. I feel it when I go do the weekly shop, and you always roughly know how much you spend on a weekly shop, right? It's always the same because you always buy the same kind of things, unless you splurge on Christmas or something, but it's always sort of roughly the same figure. And I've seen it creeping up to the level that I'm going like, hold on, did we buy anything different? Why is my Tesco bill suddenly so high?
Well, the price of butter is like the price of Bitcoin, isn't it? It's like jumping up and down like a jack in a box.
So inflation is a massive problem for us. Of course, it wipes out your real money spending power. If you get a 2% pay increase from your employer every year,
if you're lucky,
and inflation 6%, well, you just had a 4% reduction. So it's very tough, and they really need to keep an eye on this. And they definitely, going straight into the next topic, need to address housing. I cannot stress this enough, and we cannot mention this often enough, that we need rules in the Isle of Man that prevent foreign organizations or any kind of corporate landlords from buying up large watts of flats, new developments.
Got the golden opportunity. The golden opportunity this week in Tynwald, as the Extinction Rebellion was taking place outside, where it looked like a load of school kids had bunked dinner, I don't know. But inside we had the start of the rebellion extinction. We had 8 MHKs voting against the plan, the strategic plan, and surely we could link housing intrinsically into the plan. And why not just be bold? Yes. Why not be bold and say, look, in 5 years' time, we will have built 500 first-time buyers' houses or public houses or a mixture, a combination, but these are not for profit on brownfield sites. How difficult is that?
There's a wonderful model you can look at. It's way too much to go into detail in the short show, but if you want to go, have a Google. There's some good YouTube documentaries about social housing in Vienna, in Austria's capital. The way they do it there is absolutely amazing. It works. In a nutshell, we here think of social housing as something for poor people, right? You can't afford private rent, you get a social house. You're a single mom who doesn't earn much, you get a social house. In Vienna, they don't think like that. They think that housing is for everyone. You know, it doesn't matter what your income is, everyone should have the right to an affordable house. Now, the more you earn, of course, the less you will need this, so there are certain rules. But they also aim it at the middle class, and they also aim it at people who could afford a private mortgage or private rent. And they created this wonderful system. If you look it up, we need to look towards things like that, and we need to keep those people who just are in housing for profit, corporate profit, big corporations out. And, you know, here's the other problem. If you look anywhere, because I do my Isle of Man videos, like, you know, the guide and how to move here and all that kind of thing. It's very popular on YouTube. The Isle of Man advertises openly and proudly that there are no restrictions to buying property if you move here from anywhere in the world. And that's a problem. You know, we shouldn't advertise, yes, everyone should come here and buy their home, but this brings in people who buy their second, third, fourth, fifth home just to make profit. And that brings our average house price, £270,000 in the Isle of Man. What the heck?
That's incredible. And with rising prices, and it's not the cheapest place to live, surely our strategy can be geared and it can be driven by a matrix. So why not? We'll call it, say, 500 houses in 5 years, but be clever and make it so that these can't be sucked into investment properties. Because I'll tell you, we have our trickle-down tax belief, you know, for the high net worths that simply doesn't work. It's a total joke. And I'll give you an example. I know we've got a high net worth individual on the Isle of Man who owns over 300 rental properties, okay? So that is absolutely constricting what is available. And that individual is enjoying absolutely, well, very generous tax benefits. It's probably the equivalent of me and you paying 1 pence a year tax, if that.
And that shouldn't be the case, you know, that's a real problem. Sorry, I'm just checking our live feed here. We don't have a producer, it's just us. So, and you know, that's the problem. Everyone should have the right to have a home and, you know, to own your home and to be able, look, here's the thing, life isn't fair, okay? And not everyone can be successful or earn the same or be a millionaire or whatever, but everyone should have the chance to lead the life he wants to live. Have the chance, the realistic chance to buy a house if they wish to. Some people don't want to do that. You know, they're happy to rent. They may go back to wherever they moved from. But everyone should have the chance to do it.
But this is a very slow economic suicide because we've got the migration of young people going away. They can't afford the housing. But on top of that, if a couple or a young person or whatever is paying £1,000 a month, they've got reduced disposable income and the cost of living is very high. Yeah. So hence, people are wondering, well, why aren't the pubs busy? Why aren't the restaurants doing well? Because there's no disposable income in the economy. And until this rental cartel is completely broken, we won't progress any further because land is a finite resource on the Isle of Man. And we've got all these brownfield sites. We could be clever, we could be smart, but we've got to be bold. So why not say in your strategy, we'll make it a restriction that you can't own, well, you can't own, say, more than 3 houses if they're for rental properties and so forth.
There are multiple approaches they should at least explore and they should at least see what is a good way to keep, you know, the people who live here, just want to make a living and call it a home and have a family here, to keep that affordable for them. It's a government, you know, it's their responsibility to do that.
Well, as you know, I've got a business where I'm in contact with a lot of people travelling to and from the island. And in the last 2 weeks, I can say that there's a couple of firms relocating here and they're bringing over 100 people. And you just scratch your head, and apart from filling up the employment opportunities, you think, where are they going to live? And then we go to our restaurants and our hotels, and maybe the service isn't very quite what you want it to be, but it's finding the people to do the work. And quite often we'd have people coming over to the Isle of Man for the summer and what have you, but it's proving very difficult. And, you know, all the trouble that the local hotels must be having with, you know, trying to furnish the staffing.
Oh yeah, finding staff is a huge issue over here, and like you said, you know, there are more and more people coming here, especially, as you probably know, I work in e-gaming. It's a very vibrant, very still growing industry, not just the gambling side, but now also DeFi and NFTs and all that. And there are loads of people, lots of companies moving here. So where are they going to go? Now, some of these big Asian companies that are coming here, they have the means to just buy whole hotels, like some have done on the prom, right? They don't rent apartments, they just buy a whole hotel, and they go, how much, and put all the staff in there, and happy days. Because the staff usually, many of them don't stay here permanently. They stay here maybe for a couple of years, and then they leave again. So, but if more and more people come here, they all need to live somewhere, and this squeeze is going to get worse, and the prices, the inflation and all that will get worse. I don't think we've seen, anything yet. This is going to get much worse, and government needs to have a very firm plan how, all this talk about creating this wonderful island that's peaceful and community and everything is worth absolutely nothing if you cannot afford to live here.
Precisely.
It takes away the basis for your life, for your peaceful, happy life here. None of the other stuff. I don't care about the biosphere if I can't pay my rent. It sounds cruel because I care about the environment, but that's human priorities. If I can't pay my rent, do you think I'll care about any of the other stuff? No.
If you can't pay your rent, you can't afford to buy an electric car. Let's see some meat on the bone. Yes. If you are involved in the process. And I think we can say that June Watson, is he the leader of the opposition? Because he was very vocal about this strategy and how it was due to be rolled out. Let's have some figures in there. Why don't we say that nobody waits more than 2 months for a medical appointment? Can we be as bold as that? Could we do that? Would the public rejoice at that? Let's have some real metrics, some targets in there. Not beige, not bland, not boring. Let's make it deliverable and true.
Which again, the whole healthcare sector, I think that all comes down to money again. You need to get people here. I believe one of the biggest issues they have is they just don't have enough staff, or they can't attract staff. Now we have Manx now, and the first things I've heard from it seems to be good. It seems to be well received by the people who work under it. Let's see, it's new. Maybe that's a honeymoon period. But let's see how that develops. I certainly hope that it develops well and that we have a more stable health service, but it was always my impression that the biggest issue with the health service is that we cannot get enough people to move over here and work here. Because there's this matter with the pension, right? You can't carry your pension over or something, which if you're a doctor, if you're a surgeon with 20 years experience, you're not going to throw away any pension scheme that you have to move here. There were some other issues that were real problems in like I wouldn't want to be the recruiter for the Isle of Man for Manx Care, because it's going to be a tough job.
So what's the solution for recruitment, Frank? Is it time to?
Well, actually, that brings us to our exclusive story this week. Yes, we have found out that the Isle of Man government is actually engaging a new recruitment agency. And you managed to get an interview. I mean, that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Just hang on to your hats here, folks. This could be a little scary for some of you, but we'll just hit the button on which was a news scoop item, I think. So we'll just introduce
Rotate.
that. Jed Power on the Roundel Live TV, and have we got some breaking news for you? It's come to our attention that the Isle of Man government, who've had some difficult times with senior civil service appointments and so forth, are actually utilising a recruitment agency from further afield. So far, it's actually based in South Korea, and I'm joined by the recruitment manager, a Mr. Square. How are you?
안녕하세요.
Why do you think the Isle of Man government chose your company over, say, a local recruitment agent?
승자를 찾는 데 있어 입증된 실적이 있기 때문입니다. 우리는 또한 그것을 만들지 못한 다른 후보자로부터 어떠한 불만이나 소송도 보장하지 않습니다.
So tell me, what do you think will make any candidate put forward by you, say, extra special? Why are the people you refer to government the best, you think?
우리 후보자들은 가장 어려운 선택 과정을 거쳤습니다. 그들은 말 그대로 시체 위를 걸었고 무자비한 것으로 판명되었으며 동료 인간의 감정을 고려하지 않고 주변 사람을 지배하는 기술을 마스터했습니다. 따라서 인프라 부서의 CEO 또는 공항 이사와 같은 직책에 적합합니다.
So what about the core competencies of your candidates? Do they have any relevant professional experience or subject matter knowledge?
그들은 필요합니까? 나는 지금 여기에서 그 어떤 것도 볼 수 없습니다.
Well, that's a fair point. Now, what about the cost? I know that using recruitment agencies can be quite an expensive exercise.
우리는 채용 프로세스에 리얼리티 쇼 각도를 추가하여 비용을 상쇄하는 고유한 비즈니스 모델을 개발했습니다.
Okay, so you mean you'll be able to watch it on Netflix, for instance?
정확히 그것은 매우 제한된 청중을 위해
So, there we have it. That was most unusual. What's he called? Mr. Square, I believe.
And we may have buggered up the play just slightly, but
There you
there's just
go.
two of us with 10 different phones trying to get
I think
to
you
work,
might have
so.
seen that more than once. Maybe you got two helpings of the interview with Mr. Square.
We'll post the interview separately, don't worry.
But yeah, that was says it all really. Recruitment and bringing in the right staff, because we've had a few own goals, haven't we, recently? And I think on the health side of things, the arm's length method, is it working for the Isle of Man? We will see.
Right, what's the next topic?
Well, I tell you something that did catch my eye, and we're actually looking at a road closure on the mountain road for, is it 7 weeks, 8 weeks? So does that really mean 12 weeks? I don't know. So, because these road closures, as we can see from where we are, they do seem to extend way above and beyond. But what's going on up on the mountain? Is it for the TT? What can they be
It will
doing?
be for the TT, because obviously with the TT not having run for 2 years, all the drainage, all the bits that need to be in place for TT haven't been done in ages. So it's going to take quite a bit of time to prepare the road for racing again. That's probably pretty normal after 2 years of nothing.
I always wonder whether, they shut these roads down, say up on the mountain. What's the impact on the accident figures? Because whenever I see the news or look at Tweetbeat, a Twitter service from the constabulary, the place is always shut up there for an accident. It must be the most dangerous road in Europe. So at least we're going to have 8 weeks where nobody is going to, perhaps lose it up there on some of
But
those.
then everyone goes coast road and just crashes there. So
Well, it does make me wonder, because I know at the weekends we have a radar spot, speed detection device, usually around the Doon School, isn't it, around Mackle, and it always makes me laugh that you just get someone trundling along, and yet if the officer just looked up over his shoulder up at the mountain, there's all hell going on up there, and people are actually dying. It's remarkable.
that's how we do things, isn't it?
You're a speed junkie, aren't you?
Yes, I have to shut up.
You do. You love the mountain.
Look, I fought up against the speed limit in 2006 when we won. That was, sort of one of my things back then.
What was there a
There was a
contest?
consultation.
Oh, go
back
on.
in
Tell me
2006.
about
remember
why
that?
we need a speed limit.
No, I was the one
Or
against
why
it.
we don't. Oh,
Yeah, I was
you're
the one
against.
against it. Well, I'm from Germany. We don't have them on the Autobahn. So,
yeah.
granted, we don't have Autobahns here, so it's a very different fast driving, but I don't think we need it, because the stretches of road where you could even exceed any set national speed limit are very few and far between.
Yeah.
And to enforce it, it's the same, and I've said this over and over again, limits are nothing without enforcement, and I don't want this place to turn into a county of England with speed cameras every 5 meters,
Nobody wants that.
because that then makes the road more dangerous, because you're looking for speed cameras and you don't look at the road. I'd rather have people use their brains while driving. I know, hard to believe here sometimes, but I do trust drivers to use common sense and their brains, and it's just something we don't need over here, and it will also destroy the TT. So let's keep this last bit of motoring freedom. Let's not be a county of England, and do it our way.
Why don't we just have no speed limit during the TT, and for the rest of the time we can travel over the mountain, not thinking at the back of your mind there's like a 0.1% of getting wiped out.
I don't think it's necessary. The administration, the cost of doing it and enforcing it, and whatnot, is.
I don't feel so.
I said this.
Yeah.
I said this before many times, and I keep saying this. And I spoke to Stu Peters already about this. Education, driver education, is more important than some stupid signs at the side of the road that do absolutely nothing. educate the drivers better. Every new driver should get an advanced driving course for free so they can actually control their car. You don't learn to drive in a driving school. You learn to pass a test. You don't learn to pass the exam. You don't learn to drive. That's the problem.
You know, to pass a test, I think it's costing the kids now around about 130, 140 quid because they've got to use the driving instructor's car and then pay their fee as well. So it's quite a lot of money. Maybe we're not quite getting it right there. Now then, let's just talk about the gas field. I alluded to before that behind us we've got the windmills ain't turning, are they? Was this thought out? Our prices for heating our homes are going to skyrocket even more potentially. Who knows, you know, what the world economy is doing at the moment with what's going on in Kiev and Ukraine. I mean, with our own energy problems, you wonder, why don't we just get an old decommissioned nuclear submarine and hook it up? That wouldn't cost much.
Tidal power, look into tidal power. I can see the concerns why we shouldn't drill into our own waters for a bit of gas that may or may not be there. I can also see the other side where I think, hey, there's free money. You know, so I know that again, Stu Peters got a lot of flack for that because he was one of the ones who's very clearly, and I respect him for that. You know, you don't have to agree with his opinion, but at least he's one of the politicians who nails his colours to the mast. You know, it's very, very easy. It would be very easy for a politician. I'm sure many of them do it. To be a bit vague, it's like, oh, I'm all for it if it's, you know, X, Y, Z and strategic and hide behind terms. And Stu is just straightforward. It's like, no, let's get it. It's free money. If he's right or wrong, it's a completely different matter if you agree or disagree. But I like it that someone actually says yes or no. Should we drill in the water here? I'm honestly undecided, so I'll be the politician on that. I tend to say it's probably not a good idea to do that on an environmental scale and whatnot, but then we look at gas prices, we look at Russia, we look at Ukraine, the pipeline situation, and you kind of think, how long can we sustain these gas prices over here?
I'm afraid the temptation is going to be too much for them. I think the actual gas company itself, we won't name them, but I believe they've got, is it like 60, you know, shareholders who've obviously seen this magnificent financial opportunity. Yes. And these people, it isn't going to be, you know, like Joe, the shopkeeper, or, you know, Ethel, who's working in Tesco. It's going to be like Mr. Big, who's a big cheese on the Isle of Man. There's no question about that. And there's going to be a lot of shareholders, and there's going to be a lot of pressure. But also, our island, some may say financially, is in the brown stuff. And we're going to need some cash. And this could be the big cure-all. We could have the best health service in the world on the back of what can be sucked out of the gas fields.
The problem is the word could, because a lot of it is still unclear, unproven, unconfirmed. So to just, you know, jump in a dinghy now and go out there and say, let's do it, is probably a bit rushed.
But at the moment, the elected representatives who've been in nearly 5 months and what have you,
yes,
they're going to see this argument. They're going to be tantalised at the prospect of Isle of Man problems solved forever, financially. I
don't think it would solve all the problems. They need to look into this more if it's actually really there, because I don't think it's actually fully explored or proven. It's just, you know, it's more an idea at the moment.
It could be that the Isle of Man is in the centre of one giant gas field. Who knows?
Certainly enough hot air up the road. But
well, there's plenty of hot air coming out now, but it is a fascinating story. And what I would do is, why not ask your MHK, is it a yes or is it a no? Let's have none of this sitting on the fence over this issue, because the sooner we say which way, the better.
And we can do that on a lot of issues, but politicians, you know, by their very nature, like to be vague, because if you're vague, you can't be nailed down on things, can you?
Well, they have gone very quiet at the moment. I look at the social media accounts of a lot of our political representatives, and I'm afraid photographs of doing nice things and nice flowers and what have you, it doesn't really wear for me. We want some action, and we want some action delivered in that strategy. So maybe the unofficial leader of the opposition party, Juan Watterson, maybe he can drive that forward, because I know he's passionate about when the budget comes, which is, I think it's on the same stance, where the MHKs don't have chance to vote precisely on the budget. So it's either take it or leave it.
Yeah, it gets presented and it's a done, by the time they get to see it, it's a done deal. So,
But you see that, you know, you see what's happened in years gone by and how it's failed, how we've got, you know, the world's greatest and most expensive bus service, how we've got funds going here, there and everywhere. We don't have to go over all that ground about Mersey docks and the promenade and what have you. And the trams, I mean, the one that tickles me is that the tram, when it's finished, has still got £1.9 million to go to the sea terminal.
True.
And that was voted in Tynwald. So our MHKs, the one that believe in democracy and how it works, they're saying, well, that's got to be carried out. That has to be delivered. So there's another £2 million, it could be £2.5 million by then.
By the time they do it, probably 4.
To take.
Because prices increase. The longer you wait, again, inflation, the same project will cost more next year.
6% at least.
At the moment, global supply chains are completely screwed. It's super hard to get any builders or construction workers, and if you get them, they're going to be expensive. So the longer you wait with finishing the project, you know, it's not going to. If it's 1.9 million today, and you do it in 2 years, it's not going to be 1.9 million. It's going to be significantly more, and that's what people tend to forget here. So,
and the irony is that those people who came over to enjoy the horse trams on their holidays, they may not be here now. COVID could have wiped them out.
Let's hope not. But I mean, I think we're doing well on the COVID side compared to many other countries, and that's something where the government is, you know, doing well. If you look at countries like Australia, Canada, they've all gone completely nuts. Like the governments and everything is terrible what's happening there. And we don't really have that here. We're still allowed to live peaceful lives, you know.
The masks are off.
Yes.
The masks are off, and I think really we should just forget all the border controls now. You know the risks. If you're vulnerable, it could be like, you know, you had a chance of getting influenza in times gone by and other ailments. I think we've reached the point now, spring is coming. Let's aim for April the 1st as being the day when you can travel freely off and on the island, because this can't really go on.
It's more or less freely already. I mean, I've travelled for business a bit recently, and the Isle of Man part of business travel is not the problem. It's never really been the problem in recent times. It's very well organized. You arrive here at the airport, there's someone scanning your little landing card. Depending where you're from, they give you an LFT or they just wave you goodbye, because it depends if you're UK or further afield. That's actually really well done. Big compliment to the people who do it there. It's not an easy job to organize it and to do it every day. No, the island has never been the problem in that business. It's all the other countries with all the different rules, and every country sees the UK differently and has their own entry and leaving requirements and test requirements. But it is getting better, and it is getting easier to travel, and I really have a feeling we are on the path to normality again.
I hope so. Well, we'll just round off. Anything catches your eye on the local social media? I mean, I know whoever they are, the mystery people take over TV. Very clever.
Yes.
Very clever. It should be like an award given to them just for the artwork. Very clever.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It's very well done, and whoever does it clearly knows how to handle media very well.
I must admit. I mean, you mentioned before about the legalisation of cannabis and what have you. I find that quite difficult to assimilate how they do it. I don't know how.
You just decriminalise it for private use or anything. There's loads of rules. Like I think.
But that's
in
not
Berlin,
you're going to buy it in Tesco, is it?
No, but loads of countries. Look, the thing is, Canada's legalised it. Large parts of America have legalised it. They were always super strict. All of them have realised that the war against drugs doesn't work. It's not the way to do it. Look at Portugal. They've legalised pretty much all drugs, even hard drugs. And now they haven't legalised them as in you go into Tesco and pick up 5 grams of heroin. That's not how it works. They have decriminalised it. And they see drug users, especially Class A drug users, not as criminals, but as victims, as patients. Nobody voluntarily ruins their life with heroin or substance like that. Nobody does that. So there's always more to this. And the right approach is to treat them as patients, as victims, and build it from there. And if you decriminalize cannabis, you get a ton of tax money in. And
watch out.
Okay, we have a dog entering the field.
We had a dog
Yeah,
nearly come on set.
So A, you get a ton, you get a ton of tax money from it. B, you free up police resources, because I don't think the constabulary here particularly likes dragging people to court over small amounts of cannabis.
Ridiculous. Lives ruined. And the thing is, having these criminal records can stop you travelling abroad.
It can ruin your life in all sorts of ways,
Yeah,
over
yeah.
something that's not really... Now, I'm
A
not saying
fragment.
cannabis is harmless. All drugs have, harm to them in some way. But honestly, I'd rather have 10 stoners than 2 drunks around me. Because you have a lot fewer fights and a lot less trouble with drunks than you have with stoners.
But don't you think we need a level playing field? We need some fairness, because very soon we're going to be growing cannabis for medicinal reasons.
Yep.
And this is going to be on a level which is huge. There's a lot of investment behind this. So paradoxically, surely, if that is allowed to happen, someone is allowed to recreationally use and be in possession.
That's the weird thing now. We're about to grow the stuff here, but you're not allowed to consume it here. So it's only for profit and for export and whatnot. There's lots of rules. It should be. I mean, control it and tax it, and thereby, make the best. People do it anyway, okay? If you allow it or not, people do it anyway. And you may as well have control over it and tax it and do it in a way that the quality is there and it's reasonably safe. And you can cut off, by doing this, you can cut off the more harmful drugs in the same process, in the same step. So you just need a bit of common sense and get away from this.
I love this argument. We could have a whole show dedicated to this, and maybe one day we could have someone just come down and share their views, and maybe share something else, and we could be all bright and beautiful and wonderful. Maybe that would be a first.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, maybe with the new government they will, look at it and do the right thing.
Okay, I think that's time to wrap it up. We've been rabbiting on for half an hour. Thanks for joining us again, and thanks for following the show in this last week. It's all new. We're down at the Roundel on Douglas Promenade. Maybe we should go to Roundel too.
Next week? Or
I don't know. They should name these things, shouldn't they?
I'm still saying there's a sponsorship opportunity here. Yeah. Get some corporate sponsors.
Get some corporate, or just get
the
some
Heineken
nice people.
Roundel. How does that sound?
The Heineken Roundel. Well, I think it's time to wrap it up, so we'll catch you again when we're positioned either down here, or we could go anywhere. So if you've got any comments, please put them in the box, please share. If you want to take part, or if you want us to cover anything in particular, just get in touch, by the usual means. But I think it's time to just sign off and enjoy another lazy Sunday.
See you next week, hopefully. Bye.